and welcome to our What's Your Story podcast. I'm Missy Day.
And I am Michelle Hausbeck.
And so today we're just going to wing it. We don't even know what we're going to talk about because that's what you do when your guest is not here. And so we're going to talk about our upcoming What's Your Story event, the Run a Show. Hopefully you've seen it on social media, maybe not.
Facebook likes to put us in What's Your Story jail when we post about it.
So we'd like to just kind of like go over the timeline so you know what to expect when you're joining us, of who is going to be speaking on what day or night. So do you want to talk about, let's talk about why we did it. We're doing a Friday night, like a real kicking it off on a Friday, and then who's going to be joining us.
Well, we're adding a Friday because we had more people interested in speaking, which is awesome. We've actually had a couple people reach out from throughout the U.S. asking to speak, and it's kind of fun being able to say, we're full. How about next year?
Yeah, how about next year?
So Friday night, you're going to have to help me with this because I know there were some changes.
Okay.
For our speaker lineup. It kicks off with Dina, right? Mm-hmm. Dina Barnes. And she's going to be doing a really fun activity with the audience that I think we will all get a lot of value out of. And then we have like our little montage group that is going to be speaking. And some of those are first time speakers on a stage. And there's a couple that are seasoned professionals. But what we wanted to do this year is to have more of a balance. So it's not all like heavy, and then you're like, ugh. So we're trying to mix it up and have some fun entertainment, doing an activity like Michelle said. So the montage is a really good mix of humorous, outlandish stories that, when someone tells you something, you're like, what? No way. So, and there are some very dramatic stories as well. So even on the main day on Saturday, we have a good mix of that. And we kept true, I think, more this year to having the first time storytellers on an actual stage sharing for the first time, which is part of the core of What's Your Story.
Right.
So
Friday night we have a nice mix. So we have Kara Cohen will be speaking, and she's going to be interviewed by Gerard Ramallo. Yeah. We also have Brian Williams, who the cool thing about Brian is he is a professional speaker. He has been speaking for years, but he has never shared his story. And so the thing I think people don't realize sometimes that a keynote is so much different than your story. Keynotes are basically you're just giving information, or you're trying to sell a product or talk about your business. Your story is so personal. So he's going to be sharing a personal story on Friday night. And then we also have possibly Stacy Mulligan, who's going to be speaking on Saturday. Her son reached out and asked if he could speak, and he's 19 years old. So that's kind of cool that somebody that's 19 has a desire to get on the stage and talk about his life so far. I know that for me, almost anyone. I mean, I think some people have the thought process that you have to have lived a considerable amount of years before you're going to tell your story. And that's just not true. He's accomplished a lot, for being a young kid.
Oh, yeah. And I just the fact that he even thinks that he wants to do this, is fantastic at such a young age. I mean, I think back at me at 19, nope. Definitely afraid of public speaking even. So go Joey.
And then we have Louisa Voisin is going to be speaking on Friday night. She is one of our sponsors. She's actually our our diamond sponsor?
She is a gold sponsor.
Gold sponsor. And so Louisa has a fascinating life. She's done a lot of things, but she is a milliner. She creates the most beautiful hats and fascinators that I've ever seen. And she has an incredible story of all the things that she's done. So she will be speaking on Friday night as well. And then our MC, Gerard Ramallo, is going to be sharing his story, which is cool because he is used to spending 30 years as a journalist and a news anchor telling everybody else's stories. And so it's been fun to watch him try to put together his own story, which he has great stories. It's just a matter of, having that comfortability to do it on a stage. And so we kind of told him to do that for us this year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one because he's an Emmy Award winning anchor, but it's different, and he's admitted it, and even talks about the struggle a little bit to tell his own story. Mm-hmm. And he's an absolute professional in front of the camera and on stage, so good for him.
Yeah, so Friday night's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of different kind of stories, all kinds of stories. And then we'll have appetizers and pizza and things like that, and drinks, beverages on Friday night. And it's also a really nice opportunity for people to meet the speakers that are going to be speaking on Friday night, and then all the ones that are going to be there Saturday as well. And then Saturday, so excited to have Sam Schmidt kick off Saturday. It's we're thrilled that he's going to be a part of What's Your Story. And if you're not familiar with Sam, he was an IndyCar driver, and he ran his car into a wall going 180 miles an hour, which left him as a paraplegic. But I'll tell you what, if you follow him on Instagram, you would never know that there's anything wrong with Sam. And he even talks about how he's living his best life now. And he always puts the hashtag life is beautiful on all of his posts. And he's everywhere. The man is everywhere.
Oh, yeah. He is. He travels more than most of the people I know.
Mm-hmm. And always having fun.
Yeah.
So we're glad that he's going to be there to share his story and start it off on Saturday. And then do you want to talk about other keynotes?
Sure. So we also have Connor Fields. He is the first gold Olympic medalist for BMX biking. And he has an incredible story about that year when he won the gold medal, but then also in Tokyo, he crashed, and I don't want to give away all the details, but he had a pretty rough recovery on that. But now he is just a go-getter in life and teaching, a lot of youth to do BMX, and he's pretty young, and he has accomplished obviously a lot, and been through a lot in his life. So I'm excited to hear more about his story. Then we have Dean Smith, Mr. Dean Smith, returning back for a second year. He's one of my favorites, Bob. You'll hear about Bob when he talks. He is a forgiveness coach and a pastor, and just has the best outlook on life, especially through what he has chosen to overcome. His mother was murdered when he was young, and he has worked his whole life to forgive, and has forgiven the man that did that. And it's still, when I say that out loud, it still just baffles me how he was able to do that. So I'm excited to hear him again.
Me too.
Yes.
And then also a fan favorite is Gary Miracle will be coming back this year, and he is very excited about coming back. He has written a book, and he today, as a matter of fact, he got his shipment of first 2 boxes of his books. And so he'll have those available at What's Your Story. And so he's going to actually, so last year he shared the story about him going to the hospital and waking up out of a coma and missing his limbs below the elbow and below the knees for both, and how that impacted his life and how he overcame that and defied the odds that everybody told him he'd never walk again or have a normal life. And he just blew that process out of the water. And so this year he's going to talk about kind of like his backstory prior to that, of how he tried to be all things to all people in his life and was a chameleon. And so whoever he was with is who he was. And it was all different kinds of people partying, doing drugs, and then in church on Sunday. So I am really looking forward to hearing the backstory before he got sick.
Yeah. Yeah, because we know him as he is now, but I'm sure he drastically different person beforehand, because that obviously is life-changing.
Right. And then this year, Michelle and I decided to get back on the stage, and we thought, well, we haven't been up on the stage for a couple of years now, and so we're going to take advantage of the fact that when we want to speak, we speak, because it's our event.
That's right. We can just give ourselves a slot. I'm excited to get back up there. Mine, I'm not going to give away all my stories, but I am going to speak about choice and the power of choice, because that is something I firmly believe in, that we all have a choice no matter the situation. So I'm excited to get back up there.
Me too. I'm excited too. My story has changed. Well, not my story has changed, but the way I tell it has certainly changed, because I feel like there was a big part of my story that I always left out or danced around it, or, kind of like hinted around. And so this year I'm just going to tell it, the whole thing, all of it.
And it's so interesting, because I've heard Missy's big story and then different parts of it, throughout the years. And just recently she was on a podcast with Lisa Chastain, and she peeled back way more of the onion, and I'm listening to it going, oh, well, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that. So even though, like a keynote speaker, they come back and they're sharing like their story or the same story, there's always different dimension. There's always layers that are pulled back. And I have a bet with myself. I think that when you get up there to tell your story this year, there's going to be like even more pulled back, which is scary though.
Just let it all out.
Just let it all out. I admire you for doing that, I have to say, because there's parts of my life and my story that I am nowhere near ready to publicly share.
Well, I think, to be completely honest, if I'm not sure it would have happened exactly that way, because I was not prepared to tell my story on Lisa's podcast, because we had talking about What's Your Story, the event. Mm-hmm. So about 1 minute before we went on the podcast, she said, you know what? I want you to tell your story like you did at NABO. And I was like, what? So I think when you're caught off guard like that, you're like, there's no time to hold back or get it in your head. Okay, this is what I'm going to say on the podcast, and I'm not going to be talking about this or that or the other thing.
Right.
It just starts coming out, and it's just like, here we are.
Yeah. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. Well,
so
I admire
you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss us. You should buy a ticket just for us, actually.
You should. We're entertaining just in and of ourselves. That's the great part about What's Your Story, too, is, yes, there's obviously a structure. There's a run a show. We have a plan. However, we also leave enough room for it to be organic. And I can guarantee you there's bloopers that happen somewhere, shape or form. There is a lot of laughter at What's Your Story.
Mm-hmm, there is.
Just, even the people with dramatic, tragic stories, right? They're not making fun of themselves, but there's humor in it, because, hey, what I always say too is, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So, life should be fun, even through the hard stuff. But What's Your Story is a good time.
It is a good time. And going back to Sam Schmidt, how often really do you see somebody that's had a tragic accident and is paraplegic and he can only move his head, have such a fun life? And he's hilarious. When he talks, he's so funny. And we have a mutual friend, and she was telling me, she said, oh, he's the biggest flirt I know. He uses his wheelchair as his excuse to say, hey, you want to come and sit on my lap and talk? And it's like, what?
Is he Santa during the holidays? No. I mean, the man learned and worked with an automotive company to learn how to drive a car. He can drive a race car through blowing through a tube, essentially, and turning his head. I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's crazy. And he goes
incredible.
200 miles an hour in his car that he drives. It's like, wow.
I don't want to go 200 miles in a car with
Myself
with
driving.
anybody that has the use of 2 hands and 2 legs.
No
So,
kidding.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I would pass. It'd be a hard pass.
I was just going to say that.
But Gary Miracle, he's funny. Dean, funny right off the bat. When I was watching the video clip of him yesterday, you know, he's funny right off the bat. And he has a very sad story about his mother being murdered and, you know, being so young and going through all of that. But yet he has such a great approach about it when he tells his story that you don't feel like, oh, poor, you know, Dean.
Right. Yeah. I'd say most of our all of our keynotes are like that. I think even, you know, you and I, because I've heard our stories quite a bit, have an air of humor to it. But I think that's life. I mean, I know after, you know, my significant other at the time passed away, he drowned at Lake Mead. I mean, judge me if you want, but if you haven't been in my shoes, I used to say I'd pull the dead fiance card to get things done because people would feel bad and then just do things. I mean, you have to have humor about it or else it's depressing. I would rather laugh than cry, like I said.
That's really funny because we had that conversation after my mom passed. And, you know, you don't know about grief. You don't know when it's going to hit you or you don't know how you're going to handle it. And so it was, you know, it'd be like, hey, do you want to do this thing? No, my mom just passed. And it was true.
And it's true.
She did. But it was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick and choose what I want to do and don't want to do because I don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah, because, I mean, grief, it does. It hits you out of the blue, or you could be fine 1 minute and then you're just off. Can't put your thumb on it. Or really mundane, normal tasks seem really difficult. And then especially if if other people are involved and you're like, you know what? My fiance just died. Can you just do this? And they're like, oh, yeah. And they go the extra mile. I'll admit it. I used it. If anyone's ever been in our shoes, which I hope you haven't because it sucks, but you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's like you don't know until you know. And then, you know, you go different. And God bless people, you know, they mean well, but most of us, let's be honest, we don't know how to handle ourselves or what to say, what's appropriate, what isn't. And I always talk about Lisa Chastain. She didn't say anything. She would always just give me a huge hug, and that was it. And that's exactly the best way to do it because chances are, you know, saying the wrong thing or not saying the right thing is stressful. So just don't say anything. Just hug somebody.
Yeah. That's actually a great little squirrel moment here is that because I would try to always say the right thing, right, before it had happened to me. And 2 things people did that really I just appreciated more than anything was just hugging me and also saying, I know that there are no words at this moment. Just know I'm here for you. I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Basically. I have a friend, Kathy Weaver, and she actually wrote a book about loss when she lost her husband just because of the weird stuff that people would say. And she was saying, the first thing I tell people is don't say, I'm sorry for your loss. She goes, I didn't lose my husband. He's not lost somewhere. It's not like he's coming back.
Right.
He's dead.
Yeah.
You know? And
it's like, not the person's fault.
I never thought about that before.
That's true. Well, and I used to always think like everyone was saying, I'm sorry. And I know why. Like, I know why, because I've said it. I still say it, you know, just because it's a normal reaction. But it's not the person's fault.
Right.
That's saying, I'm sorry. So it's
a weird thing.
It is. It's a weird little animal. It is.
So try not to say I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Just give them a hug or acknowledge that there is absolutely nothing you can say to make the situation better. Just say, I'm here for you.
That's right.
It. PSA for the day. The MSA, Missy and Michelle service announcement.
That's right. I don't know how we even got there in the first place.
I don't either. That's what's that's what's fun. Oh.
I think we have a What's Your Story Academy where people can actually go and specifically learn how to be awesome storytellers. And so it's been fun going through the class because people, it's funny, they think they have to be this professional, like have it all together, like I'm going to rock your world kind of a thing. And it's not that at all. It's just like you're saying. It's fun. It should be fun. You should have a good time and tell your story. And if you laugh in an inappropriate moment in the story, who cares?
But that's the thing. It's your story. You know, if I share a piece that everyone's like, but I'm laughing, well,
right.
You know, I think it also gives people permission to not feel weird if the person that it happened to is like okay with it, I guess, when they're delivering information. Like,
right. I think it helps the audience determine how they can feel if they're, you know, because if somebody tells something in a funny way, I think of David Dendy all the time. Oh. He says some pretty like heavy things, but the way he says it is just you laugh, and I think that's good. We don't always have to react to sadness with sadness.
Right. I agree. Going back to the grief and things people say, I think, well, both of us would probably write a book too. Just some people say things and you're like, what? Huh? But anyways, it becomes uncomfortable then when they say certain things and you're like, I really can't believe that came out of your mouth. But I would just respond back with humor a lot of the time because then it's not uncomfortable anymore. I don't know if that's a deflection or not, but it made it easier to get through some conversations. I'll say that much.
The most bizarre response after my mom passed was somebody said to me, well, I'm glad it was you and not me because I don't think I could handle my mom dying. And it was like, wow, okay, thank you.
Okay, that goes on the list of do not say that. The one that caught me the most off guard, and it's funny, I shared this with Doug last night for whatever reason, was Shane, he died, but he drowned at Lake Mead. Oh my God. I don't know, 3 or 4 days after the fact, as we're telling people, someone, it was like 2 friend circles removed, but I was on the phone with them and they said, what did the body look like? And I'm like, oh,
what?
Yes. I had
wow.
no response to that. And I just said, I have to go, and hung up. I literally did not respond to that. I'm like, what on earth?
Who would even ask that? It's like, did you have a stroke right now? Is that why you asked that question?
Right. Reading Lisa Ramelo's book. She's actually spoke at What's Your Story a couple of times, and she lost her husband, and she wrote a book about it. And I just can so identify with some of the things she talks about, and it is what people say to you. Yeah. Most people mean well. I will say that.
They do mean well. It's just that nobody, there's not a class that, you can take in how to respond to other people's grief. So everybody just kind of wings it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say too, here's a learning lesson in what we're talking about story. As you hear more people's stories about, we're talking about grief right now, and the many other topics, it actually helps you to understand a different point of view. So when you are faced with a situation where maybe somebody is going through something that you would never understand, if you've heard other people talk about it in story form, like this, like you can at What's Your Story, it gives you some insight into how to help or care for that person. So
Yeah, I think watching how other people respond to things in their lives, like Gary, I cannot relate to like him, Sam, with those kinds of stories because I think that's something you just have to go through in order to know what it's like. However, it does give you like insight into your own life of one, when you see Gary, you're like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm good.
Right.
And it helps you like feel, I don't know if better is the right word, but it gives you a different sense of yourself and, and have recognition about gratitude.
Yes.
And being thankful things that we take for granted every day. Like I never think about when I get up out of a chair, I'm going to walk. I never think, oh, okay, you got to get up and okay, legs, let's go. Well, Gary has no legs. So, it's like,
Right.
be thankful.
Yeah, I definitely every single What's Your Story I've ever been to since the very beginning, everybody's story made me feel grateful about something or a piece of my life or a person in my life or everything. So
And it gives you hope for the future. It may not give you significant hope that day that you're hearing the story, but I guarantee you, like 5 years down the road and you experience something, you're going to reflect back on when you heard these people's stories and how they overcame and are inspirational to everyone. You're going to draw on that. And that's, I think, the cool thing is that What Your Story isn't just a moment in time. It lives on for a long time after the event.
oh yeah, it's ingrained in you, even if you don't realize it. Like there'll be something that happens or a situation, and I'll pull from, I don't know, one of the first couple that somebody talked about. I'm like, oh, okay, there's hope.
Yes. And so if you would like to experience hope and inspiration and some fun and learn new things and meet new people, our event is October 13th and October 14th at the Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel. And if you'd like more information, please visit our website at www.whatsyourstory.vegas. And you can find information as far as tickets. You can see speaker information, and you can also look at our sponsorship information. We couldn't do this event without our sponsors, and we're so thankful and grateful for all of our sponsors every year that we've done this. So if you would like to jump in and be a part of the What's Your Story family and be a sponsor, I would invite you to look at that on our website. But most importantly, we really would like to see you there so you can experience it for yourself.
Absolutely. Everything she said.
A big ditto.
I would like to thank our sponsors that we do have. So we have the Coop. They are what are we calling that? A bronze sponsor. We are actually sitting in the Coop right now. It's
Yes,
a co-working space in Las Vegas with a couple locations. We have Stacey Mulligan. She is a speaker and a realtor. So thank you, Stacey. We have, who else is coming?
Louisa.
Yes, thank you for that.
And Gary Franzen, clothier.
Yes.
They are a sponsor. Gary makes beautiful suits. So if you've ever seen a VGK game and our local people here in Vegas who gives commentary on the games, their suits are made by Gary.
Yeah, we have a cool little sewing kit that will be in your swag bags.
Oh, the swag bags. The swag bags are awesome this year.
Yes, they are. It's worth it just to get the swag bag, buy a ticket. So we look forward to seeing you on October 13th and October 14th. Go get your tickets. It's about a month away. And if you are a business, we have a $500 sponsorship that includes a ticket, and it gets your logo out there and on our social media, and you'll get recognition at the event. So take a look.
That's all for today.
Bye.
Bye.